Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, or good night, wherever you are in the world. You have just watched the mighty Niarco winning the Grand Prix de Paris at Longchamp in 1938. Nearco, unbeaten, was bred and owned by Senatore Federico Tesio and Marchese Mario Incisa della Rocchetta under the banner of Razza d'Ormello Giatta. When Nearco went to stud with his progeny, he completely changed the world of the modern thoroughbred. You should bear in mind that nowadays, any day, on any race running all over the planet, I'm talking about thoroughbred, over 90% of them, they carry Nearco's blood, which is a phenomenal achievement. Today, we have, as usual, a very special guest, Mr. Brian Finch. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Carlo.
Brian Finch is the chairman of the most important and prestigious racecourse in the world, Epsom. How come that you get involved in this business and then you became chairman, as I say, of the most important and prestigious racecourse in the world?
I'd need about 3 hours to answer that question properly, Carlo. But I'm born in Zimbabwe as a racing fan, as a young boy. It was a country that had 2 racetracks at the time. And my father was very keen on racing, so he took his young boys with him. So I got to learn racing in that jurisdiction. And like most other racing jurisdictions, the whole racing program was modeled on British racing. So races like the Derby were I feel like I grew up knowing them because it was very much a part of my formative years in racing. And as life takes its many twists and turns through various things that have happened, I ended up living, firstly buying a house in the town of Epsom, and we still live here. And then I sort of came racing, met people from the jockey club, and one thing led to the other. I joined the racecourse committee here at Epsom, and then got the huge privilege of being asked to chair the racecourse, and I've been the chair now for just over 2 years.
But you had a different business aside before becoming chairman of Epsom Racecourse.
That's correct. Yeah, I work basically for a multinational company, and just to show you how one can never plan things in their life. My very first job for that company was looking after sponsorships of horse racing and football. And the horse race that I particularly looked after was the Benson and Hedges Derby in Zimbabwe. So who would have thought 30 years later that I would be associated with the original at Epsom? But yeah, my professional career was
look at my cat, he's coming. My cat, his name is Frankel. Because he was born in 2012, when Frankel won at Ascot.
Yeah.
So I got this little cat and named him Frankel.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I said before, Epsom is the most important and the most prestigious racecourse in the world because everybody in the world, every horse owner, every horse breeder has a dream to win the Epsom Derby. Now, I want to say something because I was in Ireland and talking to some friends, and then when I go racing in the UK, talking to other friends. Now, people start talking about allowing geldings to run in the Derby or to run in the Arc de Triomphe. I have to say that this is a blasphemy, in my humble opinion, for the simple reason that Senatore Federico Tesio said that the selection of the thoroughbred is made by that piece of wood, which is the winning post of the Epsom Derby. So if you have to make a selection, how can you make a selection with geldings? absolutely a nonsense, first of all. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, Carlo. Personally, I think the classics should remain for end tires only, because they are the breed-defining races. They are limited to 3-year-olds, and you choose the best of the lot. And some go on to become the real champions and breed shapers, and some maybe not. You cannot get a champion every year. So I certainly believe that the classics will remain unchanged. I think there's enough evidence to show that it's not a broken system, so it can be left well alone. If you want to have championship races like the Arc is, where you're having older horses against younger horses later in the season, well, I'll leave that to the others to make their decision. But as far as the classics are concerned, I certainly can't see that there'd be any long discussions about wanting to change that.
Yes, because let's say that, for instance, in 2025, the Guinness, the Derby, and the St. will be won by geldings. So it will be something out of the world. I can't, I can't even imagine. I don't want to even imagine a classic won by a gelding, because it would be the end of racing. Because racing, first of breeding and racing, first of all, is making a selection of the thoroughbred. Anyway, we will see, and I hope that I will not see this change, because in my opinion, it would be a real disaster. Anyway, going back to Epsom, I think that you are playing a very important and a very delicate role, because running a race course, or being the chairman of the committee, or the trust, or whatever you want to call it, which runs Epsom, as I say, the most prestigious, important race course in the world, is not something easy, I guess.
So thank you for that, Carlo, and please keep repeating that, because I believe that in my heart of hearts, that it is the race course, the iconic race course, the very unusual race course. But it's one of those institutions that has such a great history, that you look back at the great horses that have run at this track, and what they've gone to do for our breed going forward. You realize that we have a very special asset. And during my time as chairman, I'm just here to look after it and hopefully make it better for the next person to take it on, and to do what people have done for the past 245 years. I'm very lucky that...
Sorry if I interrupt you, because
please.
You say something very important. The Epsom Derby started 245 years ago.
1780, yeah.
1780. So, and now there are people that they want to change the history, allowing geldings to run in the Derby. It's unbelievable. 245, and I hope that it will go on for another 245.
Well, that's our job to do, is to preserve it for the next generation, Carlo, and that's what we'll try to do at Epsom. I'm very fortunate that the racetrack is part of the Jockey Club estate. The Jockey Club have 15 race courses. Epsom is one of them. So as the committee, we are focused certainly on Epsom itself, but we get the benefit of being able to leverage the entire Jockey Club capability in producing our events, in making sure our prize money, matches. The Derby is still the richest race in Britain today at £1.5 million. That we get the right level of support from trainers, owners, that we continually improve our facilities. So the Jockey Club are huge. They embrace the race course, and they embrace the history of the course, and they support it. And for that, I'm very, very grateful.
Before going deep into what's the plan Epsom has in mind, because I think that Epsom is talking about a festival of racing or something like that, we have a short break. Don't go away. Stay with us. Well, I read somewhere, as I said before, that the committee, or Epsom anyway, the people running the race course, they have something in mind, creating a sort of, if I'm right, a sort of a festival of racing with the Oaks, the Derby, and something like that. Is that correct?
That's our thought, Carlo. So it's very much an initiative that's been led by the current general manager, who was together with quite a big team, put together a strategy for the whole race course. And obviously, key in that is the Derby Festival itself, sponsored by Bedford at the minute. And the thinking is we have 3 Group 1 races during the festival. It's clearly the Coronation Cup. Which has been a long established Group 1, sort of the first real big Group 1 in Britain for middle distance horses over the 1.5 mile trip. Then we have the Oaks, which I'll also mention is 1 year older than the Derby. It started in 1779. And that's been a breed definer as well. If you think of the number of mares who've done so well in the Oaks and have gone on to create stallions and future horses, Ouija board being a wonderful case in point. And then, of course, we have the Derby. So the thinking is, how do we get back to create, to allow that Derby festival to be a bigger focus point than it has been in recent times? Thinking about trying to do things over a week, where we would space out the racing, and in between the racing we will have events associated with Epsom, with its history, and really involve the town in the way that it used to happen maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago. So we're at the beginnings of developing that concept. The general manager, Tom Sams, presented that to assess people's views, but it's still very early. Nothing is concrete. We've still got a lot of planning to do to get it right. But the thinking is that the Derby will evolve, or the Derby Festival will evolve into something like a week-long festival, assuming we can get all the necessary things in place and approved.
I remember myself having been to the Derby when the Derby was run on Wednesday.
Yeah.
There were 150,000, 200,000, 250,000 people, all the coaches around the track. You know, it was unbelievable. And now there is the fair, you know, and then is something that if people don't see, they can't even imagine what Derby Day is, because or what Derby Days was, because at the time, I say there were 250,000 people. I remember that I was the president of the Association of Young Racegoers. We were connected with the British one. And 1 year we went to the Derby. We used to organize trip abroad. We went to the Derby, and with a big bus, and the driver parked the bus in the middle of the track. Unfortunately, he drank too much. And then when we left the race course on the way back to London, the bus, you know, they did like that. We went into, it was a disaster. And, you know, we went, I remember that the following day by the Daily Express, there were 42 Italian race goers. They had an accident. Some of us went to the hospital anyway. But at the time, I remember, because the bus was really in the middle of the track, and there were probably 200,000 people, you know.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'm so glad you survived. We would not be recommending any drivers be drinking and driving, please. So that's not something we would condone. But yes, you look at some of the old footage of the race course. If you go there today, which is when it's empty, and you see exactly the same landscape, and you realize that this was filled with people who came from all parts of the country and internationally, just to watch this race take place. And it's our job now to try and reinvigorate it, to put more things around it, to see if we can create the Derby of the future that everybody wants to watch, wants to come to, and wants to enjoy. And we're at the beginnings of that now, Carlo, and we'll keep trying to deliver that.
Let's talk about the conformation of the track, because conformation of the track is unique. Unfortunately, last year I heard somebody in Italy, unfortunately, I have to say in Italy, saying that is a sort of a sacrilege that the Derby has to be run on that unbelievable track. And then I remember, because it was during a radio program which I was doing from Epsom, and I say, how can you complain about Epsom if Senatore Federico Tesio stated many years ago that the selection of the thoroughbred is made by that piece of work of wood, which is the winning post of the Epsom Derby. That's full stop. You can't, this is that. And then, I have to say that you might be able to explain to our watchers, the conformation of the track itself is quite complicated, if you wish.
It's very unique, that's for sure, and it's one of the beauties of British racing is that the tracks are never uniform. They're very different, as you can see with Goodwood or Brighton, and then you have a York and Ascot with a hill and Sandown with a hill. There are many variations of racing. But what we love about Epsom is we've got the benefit of history, Carlo, and history will show you just through the horses that have won there, both in the Oaks and in the Derby, that the very, very good horses manage to handle the unique contours of the track. So when you jump off from the 1.5 mile start, you effectively climbing. You have a dogleg bend, which goes under the trees, and then you cross to the rail, and you're climbing for the equivalent of, for those who are familiar with London, the equivalent of Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square. So you need a horse that can actually have the stamina to do that. It must stay 1.5 miles first of all, but it needs the stamina to climb. And then you get to the top of the hill and you start turning left and you're starting to get down into Tattenham Corner. And it's quite a sharp decline. And the horses start to freewheel down there. So again, you need a horse with balance, with the right temperament, that can run off the right lead to stay balanced around the turn. And then you turn into the straight and you've got just under 3 furlongs to go towards the finish line. And if you, at that point, and you stand on the track and you watch it, you'll see that it's not flat. It actually has quite a sharp camber towards the rail. At the time when horses are potentially getting tired, and you need a horse that is not tired, that really has stayed the trip, who can run straight and true and finish the race off. And just as you come up to the finish line, maybe I think maybe half a furlong or so, even less, you'll find there's a slight incline again. So it is a proper test of a racehorse. And again, people will say, well, it's an unusual test, but the great ones have done it, and you can name them from Seabird to Ribbo, to Galileo, to Nijinsky, to Mill Reef. I mean, you can just go through them. And of course, we've got City of Troy, who's just gone and demonstrated just how good he is. There are more than enough great racehorses who've handled the unique contours of Epsom and have shown themselves to not just be the best of their 3-year-old generation, but have gone on to demonstrate that they've been able to beat their older counterparts as well.
And then you mentioned, which is something unusual on a race course, the camber.
Yes.
Because the jockeys, they have to pay attention to that, because it's towards the what can I say, towards the rail opposite end. This is another what can I say, another could be another trouble. Let me use this word, because as you say, you climb the hill, you go left downhill, then you have the Tattenham Corner, you go downhill, then you start climbing again. On top of that, you have the camber. So as you say, if the horse who will win the Derby is something absolutely special, of course, some years there are moderate, the field is quite moderate. Of course, these things happen, but you mentioned fantastic horses. You mentioned Nijinsky, the only one since 1970 having won the Triple Crown.
Correct.
Unfortunately, the Coolmore people, they try to do that with Auguste Rodin last year, but it was a failure in the Guinness. They try again with City of Troy, another failure in the Guinness, in the 2000 Guinness, because I know that John McNair and the other guys, they want to win the Triple Crown. They nearly won it with Camelot. Then we know what happened in the St. Leger, but they want to win because I mean, if you win the Guinness, you win the Derby, and if you win the St. Leger, which is run over an unusual distance, if you wish, and you win the Triple Crown, we know what Nijinsky did when he went to start, what
Correct.
he did as a racehorse, and what he did, what he went to start. So that means that it was the ultimate racehorse, you know, having won the Triple Crown. But is not so easy. So I know that Betfred will give a prize or something if a horse will win the Triple Crown. Am I right?
That's correct. So Betfred, firstly, the Derby's only had 5 sponsors in its history, in its 245-year history. So we're very grateful to, Ever Ready, then Vodafone, which people will remember. Then we had Investec, who were with
Bernard Canto,
for a very long time. Then we had Kazoo for a short period, and now Betfred. And Betfred also are sponsors of the St. Leger. So they've now got the 5, and of course the Guineas. So they've now got the 5 classics, and they've offered a special bonus to the horse that can try and win the Derby and win the Triple Crown and become the first horse since Nijinsky. And I think it's a prize well worth going for. The bonus will be nice, but can you imagine a stallion that's won the Triple Crown here in Europe? I mean, it would mean a great deal. So we're very grateful to organizations like Coolmore who state so openly all the time that not their sole purpose, but that when their next crop of horses come through, they are always thinking ahead to have they got a Derby horse who can win the Derby, and I think that's fantastic, and I hope other big racing institutions ownership groups will do exactly the same thing, because the Derby is a very, very unique and special race.
Exactly. Before we finish, I want to to say something about this sponsorship of Betfred, because Betfred is run by the 2 Dunn brothers, and then I'm very happy that they decided to do that, because nowadays the art of bookmaking is disappearing, because the major companies are run, if you wish, in bracket by accountants. They're not run by proper bookmakers anymore. But these 2 guys, they are proper bookmakers. They are still there. They are still working. They are still running their company, which is something unique in this world of betting nowadays.
Look, the Jockey Club work with all the bookmakers, and they partner in across the whole Jockey Club estate, and all the various companies. But we were particularly excited about Betfred, and I loved what Fred Dunn said, that we are the classic bookmaker, and those were his words. I think the fit is very, very good for the Guineas Festival, obviously for the Derby Festival as well. And the St. Leger, which is obviously not a Jockey Club racecourse, but they're putting a lot into racing, and we're very grateful for that.
I believe that Fred Dunn decided to do that because he's the only one proper bookmaker remain in the world of bookmaking, because all the other big companies are owned by hedge funds. So everything changed. Even the strategy, the policy of the other bookmakers changed. These 2 guys they have been bookmakers all their life, and they're still there. And this is the reason, I believe myself, maybe that I'm wrong, why they decided to do the sponsorship of all the classics in the UK.
We're very grateful for that. And as I say, they've been great partners to work with at Epsom. We've been with them now. We've had 2 Derby festivals, certainly that I've been associated with. And we've seen the improvement from year 1 into year 2. And I have no doubt year 3 and year 4 will be better and better. And I hope they are our sponsors and our partners for a long time to come.
Yes, I wish to thank you very much for your time, and I wish you best you that during your tenure at Epson you will have a triple crown with them.
Thank you very much, Carlo. I really appreciate that. Cross fingers.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you.
See you
Bye. Bye-bye.